come the Cronulla Sharks, led out by captain David Hatch. And they're coming out of the number 7 Guernsey, little Paul Bishop. His dad played in the Golden Oldies match just a few moments ago. The Cronulla team docking at fullback, Coleman, Eddinghausen, McGaw and Davidson the three-quarters, Speechley at 5'8", and Paul Bishop at half. Hatch, the lock forward and captain, Miller and Pappas the second rowers, Danny Lee, Staines and Massey up front, and the coach Alan Fitzgibbon. Here come the St George Dragons. Ricky Walford, 26 points last week, leading point scorer so far this season, comes onto the field. The St George lineup, South at fullback, Walford, Johnston the captain in the centres with Beattie, Coyne the other winger, Potter at 5'8" and Robinson the half. The forwards for the Dragons are lock forward Mackay, the second row is Noak and Hoogerwerf, the front row Kelly, Bailey and Osborne, and the coach Craig Young. The referee for this very important match, Greg McCallum, asking for a football, strangely enough. Most important requirement. In the last 10 years, Cronulla have won 12 and St George 9 of their outings. And in the first round this year, Ricky Walford converted a Trevor Bailey try in the 79th minute for Saints to win 23-22. The match gets underway with Arthur Pappas kicking off. St George defending that southern end. They've got the use of the very stiff breeze in the first half as Moat brings it back. But strangely enough, in the lower grades today, nearly all of the points were scored by the team running against the breeze. Only a penalty goal in reserve grade at Cronulla being scored with the breeze in the earlier matches. In President's Cup, Cronulla defeated St George 24-14. And in reserve grade, Cronulla successful 14-10 after leading 12-0 at half-time.
Immediately, St George losing the ball. Some strong tackles from Cronulla.
Bishop, as Cronulla go on the attack. Lee, penalty against St George. Up inside the 5, and Pappas, or we presume Pappas will start with the kicking duties. He'll come up and have a shot for penalty goal.
Billy Noak and also Shane Kelly, too enthusiastic. Moving up out wide in defence. The referee immediately laying down the law. He wants to separate these sides.
St George coach Craig Young, extremely pleased with last week's performance. But he knows that the next 79 minutes are just as crucial as last week, and of course next week and the week after. Pappas to put the first points on the board. He kicked a lot of sand. He's missed it. And Potter can't get it back into the field of play, and play will restart with a line dropout. Well, I think to describe that as a shocker is an understatement.
May have been some nerves there from Arthur Pappas. He's got an important role with the goal kicking today. Alan Wilson is a fresh reserve.
Coleman bringing it back. Good tackle from Osborne. Miller dummy half. Found Pappas. Oh, solid tackle. That was Hoogerwerf. Miller again, crossfield, finds Danny Lee. Miller again from dummy half. Slips the pass away to Hatch. Oh! And Miller hit in the back play by Hoogerwerf. A strong right hand. Miller really caught one, I can tell you that. He didn't miss, Jason. There's Miller. It was a strong right hand.
Well, watch number 11. That's Hoogerwerf as Miller is on the ground there, and there's the punch. Well, that was a ridiculous punch from Hoogerwerf. The tackle had been completed. Miller simply on the ground. I don't know what irritated Hoogerwerf to cause him to do that, unless he simply knows the threat that Gavin Miller will be for the rest of this game.
Well, this will be interesting. Remember, Greg McCallum refereed the Balmain-Brisbane game a fortnight ago. Didn't send Steve Roach off for 10 minutes in the sin bin. Well, you remember many people thought that Roach should have been sent off, and I wonder what was going through Greg McCallum's mind as a similar sort of offence occurred this afternoon. Hoogerwerf 10 in the bin for a very strong right hand on Gavin Miller.
And I think that's a good decision by the referee. Uncalled for punch.
Hasn't taken as much sand this time. An easy kick. That one looks much better. And he's got it. 2 points to Cronulla. 5 minutes gone. Cronulla leads St George 2-0. Just inside St George's territory. Cronulla leading 2-0. Miller goes the blind side. Docking's over there. Solid defence. Last tackle against Cronulla. Miller kicks himself and gains another 6 or 7 metres. 32 metres out from the St George line. 10 metres in from touch where the scrum will go down. First round, St George winning 23-22. A converted try in the last minute of the match.
A little stab kick of Gavin Miller just gaining 6 or 7 metres. You'd wonder whether it wouldn't be more value to put up a bomb right in the middle of the field and chase through, and never know, you might come up with possession once more. You virtually hand it over with the feet at the scrum going to St George.
Well, you don't if they make silly mistakes like that. Ettinghausen coming through quickly. He should win the race for the ball. He doesn't. Scores.
Yes, well, the error made by St George. St George in possession, they had control, but they forced a pass, and Ettinghausen's speed has been the difference.
Well, Michael Beattie it is who spills the ball, and they're just making ridiculous handling errors, St George. Really is. Unforced handling errors.
Ettinghausen quick thinking to tow the ball through. It was on the ground. He knew that the fullback was probably up. His best chance was to put it on the toe. It comes off the post, and did he ground it fairly? I'd like to have another look at it. Probably did get it down. There's Beattie. He had a look. He had all the time in the world to take what wasn't a particularly good pass, but he should have taken it. Now let's watch Ettinghausen here. Does he get this ball down as it comes off the post? Looks like a knock-on to me.
That was a knock-on. It wasn't a fair try. But you can't blame the referee. He was behind what happened.
Yes, the referee may have been unsighted behind Ettinghausen, but it certainly was a knock-on.
Hoogerwerf coming back on. Pappas from in front to convert the Ettinghausen try. 2 points. Cronulla leading St George 8 points to 0. On the halfway line, Ettinghausen. Across field goes Ettinghausen. And that's a good tackle from Bailey. Speechley, short side to Miller. Miller looking for runners, but there was nobody on the inside. He had Docking on the outside. Inside Saints territory, Lee. Midway half and quarter line in Saints territory. Beautiful football here, Speechley in a bit of space for the quarter line. Back on the inside, here's Pappas, and Pappas will score, or will he? Referee says penalty, double movement.
Well, great football there by Cronulla, but they didn't get the try they were looking for. Here's Pappas for the line. South misses him, and Pappas reaches for the line. Well, I don't know. Maybe that was a fair try too. Always difficult to tell in slow motion whether or not his momentum carried him to the line. Might be worthwhile just having another look at that. He comes down just short of the line, but it looked as if his momentum might have carried him.
Here's Kelly.
As you said earlier, David, in the earlier matches today, the team running into the wind in the second half managed to put some points on the board, but nearly all the points. It'll be interesting. I doubt that Cronulla are going to let St George out of the trap that they can set with this win. They should just punch it down there and keep St George in their own 22.
The kick from South, that time blowing away from Docking, which gave Potter a chance, but then he's got around Potter. Docking's gone straight through. Docking, if he can link up, he doesn't need to link up. This is a super try. Jonathan Docking races away. That's the end of St George. He's beaten about 6 would-be defenders. Cronulla 12, St George 0. Touch judges.
Superb run here from Jonathan Docking. He had to steady here to pick up the ball. St George had him pinned as too, but the beautiful step off the right foot. In a twinkling, he's through, shoots through, pushes away from Osborne, who just grabbed at him but was beaten for pace, and then was just straight through to the line. Steps past Graham Wynn, I think it was, with great ease there. Shane Kelly was just tucked in behind the referee out of the right-hand shot and didn't move early enough. And look at Docking, you can't believe it. He's just split them straight through and goes all the way. He's a very fast runner, is Jonathan Docking. But St George defence lacking there.
4th try of the year for Jonathan Docking, nicknamed Pixie. And that was a pretty good try. And St George really down in the dumps now.
Well, they all held off him there. Too many just waited for somebody else to make the tackle.
The breeze, which has become even stronger, I think, in favour of Cronulla. Here's Wilson. Plenty of height, plenty of distance, and he's hit the posts and it comes back into the field of play.
St George really are doing it tough.
Robinson, Potter.
The lack of effectiveness of the forwards, Osborne being one, but he's not alone. But as I say, Cronulla had all week long to look at that video and see where Canterbury went wrong last week, and they haven't given Osborne much room to move. Notice there, we see Eddinghausen up quickly on him. He's cutting across the ruck, but they're just not giving him the room, firstly to run, secondly to get his hands free.
Mackay's gone straight through. He's got Walford there. Now Walford's got away. They won't catch Ricky Walford. Walford's got a heap of pace. Walford bringing it around. Walford will make it easier for him to convert his own try. St George are back in the game. Craig Young rises to his feet and thinks maybe there's still a chance. Mackay started it and Walford finished it off.
Well, the speed of Ricky Walford, we saw it 4 times last week. Here it is, Mackay bustles his way through the defence, stays on his feet well, and then Walford managed to get past Stocking, and then Alan Wilson gave chase, but he was never going to catch the flyer. Ricky Walford adds to the number of tries for the season. He's really piling them on. But look at this good break by Mackay. He brushes away from 2. The Cronulla defence did finally crack through a little bit of skill, a little bit of step, and a little bit of looking from Brad Mackay. But then Ricky Walford down the touchline, all the way. Alan Wilson chases, but he never was going to catch him. Ricky Walford, what a couple of weeks he's having. What a season he's having. This man could have played rep football, deserved to.
His 13th try of the year, which means he's the leading try scorer at this stage. 138 points. Before this round, he was 36 points clear of Laurie Daly, who scored 2 tries for Canberra last night. Well, Cronulla starting to think about that first round when St George came back from the dead, and it was a Ricky Walford try that went the length of the field that brought St George back into business in the first round.
Very important conversion this to bring them within 6 points.
Into the wind, Walford moves in, there's the kick. It's not going to get there though. Never looked likely from the time it left the boot. Cronulla 12, St George 4. And welcome back to the Caldex field. Our apologies for that, but just complete loss of power. I think people know what blackouts are all about. Well, that's exactly what we've copped down here at Cronulla. No change to the score though. Still Cronulla leading St George 12-4, but St George have thrown everything at Cronulla in the last 10 minutes, but have been unable to score. This is the first time that Cronulla have really been back in St George's territory in the last 10 minutes of the match. So Bill Dunn is the replacement on out there for Cronulla, and here's McGaw. McGaw's pass comes to Wilson. Wilson will go in and score. Wilson scores the try. Alan Wilson charging up the right flank has scored the try. And if it wasn't the ball game before, that's it now. Cronulla 16, St George 4.
What a superb pass from Mark McGaw here. Miller goes across the ruck, catches the defence, just a little napping. McGaw on the burst, hitting it straight, but look at that great pass as he was falling. There's no answer from the defence to that kind of skill. Just superb football. But Miller, thinking all the time, realised they were a little loose on that side. He obviously had set it up with McGaw, who was coming full belt, and then McGaw getting that great pass away. Nothing South could do to stop Alan Wilson from scoring the try.
So Alan Wilson's 10th try of the year.
Well, St George know that that's the end for this season for them. They can't get back into this match.
So Alan Wilson to convert his own try. He's got it up pretty high. It looks pretty good. It's a great kick. Alan Wilson from the touchline makes the margin 14 points. And that certainly puts it beyond St George now. Cronulla 18, St George 4.
Their form has not been convincing over the last couple of months. Cronulla playing below their best. Not too sure exactly what it is that's lacking out there, but they'll benefit possibly from the return of Michael Porter, Dane Sorensen next week, and also Barry Russell, of course.
Barry Russell's out for a couple more weeks, possibly, as another penalty goes against St George. And it's against... well, it really shouldn't have been against Wynn, should it? Unless there was just on the blind side, we couldn't see that.
Well, he may have pulled the ball out just after the referee called held.
Wilson comes in. He struck that not as well as what he would have liked, and it put it out to the right of the uprights.
And scoreline at Celtic Field, no 18, George Taylor.
So Cronulla leading 18 points to 4. Still got about 3 to 4 minutes to go in the match.
Alan Wilson's one man that Cronulla really do need to hit form over the next couple of months. Here he is now running the ball back up after starting the season in blinding form. He was injured. I know he was in the New South Wales squad, but just doesn't seem to have been the same player over the last couple of months. Dropped for this game, coming on as a fresh reserve. But if he can hit back to his best form, he'll be a real weapon for Cronulla, and won't Gavin Miller welcome him and Barry Russell running off him.
Lee, who's been a hard worker for most of the day. Here's Miller to Staines.
I think Cronulla would have gone nowhere today without Gavin Miller. It hasn't been his flashing passes, but it's been his effort in defence and attack.
Osborne quickly, it goes to Bailey. He floats it out the back. Now here's Mackay up to the quarter line. Mackay to Fafita. Fafita, can he get it away to Walford? Eventually it comes to Walford. Walford over the halfway. Walford tries to do the little pirouette around Docking. He's lost it. It's gone over the touchline in the end. The referee said, the touch judge, says it has come off a Cronulla player's hand, I think. Well, that's interesting.
Ricky Walford must have been thinking about the kick, but he looked inside and saw Eddinghausen and thought that he might have beat him to the ball, but in the end, that ball coming off whose hand?
Well, hard to tell from the replay, but the touch judge seemed to indicate that it had come off the Cronulla player's hand, but the referee ruled that it came the other way. Thought Walford was going to try something similar last week, a little chip and chase there for a minute.
I thought he would kick ahead. As I say, maybe he didn't quite have the time to set up his kick. He was running at an awkward angle there on the left-hand side of the field, and he may have just looked inside and seen Andrew Eddinghausen coming across in cover about 10 metres ahead of him, but you have to be a quick thinker to sum all that up.
Bishop decides to kick. It'll find touch too. This will probably be the last scrum of the game. Driving St George back deep inside their territory.
Bishop, a very able replacement for Russell. May not have the same spark in attack, but he's a very steady player. He hasn't let them down.
Potter, South, quickly away to Mackay. On it comes to Johnston. Johnston over the quarter line. Speechley giving chase. Johnston's too quick for Speechley. Coming across, Docking's got him though, but a good bit of football from St George. He keeps up and keeps going. Here's Johnston down to the quarter line. On the inside is Coyne. Coyne floats it across to Bailey. Bailey, will he score? He gets it back to Coyne, who's gone without it. All those St George players are offside, but in the end the referee's going to put a scrum down. That would have been a super try.
Bailey was on his way to the line, but he realised it was Eddinghausen he had to beat, so he stopped and tried to prop back on the inside, and that pass to Coyne just too hard and a touch too low. It had to be perfect because they were so close together.
Well, the incredible thing about the whole day is that St George have just dropped so much ball. It could have been so much different had they gone out there and held their passes.
Well, it doesn't matter how much ability you've got in the side. If you don't control that ball, treasure the possession, use the ball well, you're going to come out on the wrong end of the scoreboard. And St George have blown their chances today.
I dare say that both Canberra and Balmain would have been hoping St George would score, because points for and against could be vital in a fortnight's time. There's the siren. It's all over down here at Caldex Field. Cronulla, after leading at half-time 8 points to 0, have come away with the match by defeating St George 18